Right, so what I've got here is our Corsa VXR top mount turbo kit. So there's quite a lot of components to make up this one kit. A lot of the time when you want to fit a Garrett turbo or a Borg-Warner turbo, whatever, people tend to look at, I need to get a manifold, I'll probably need some oil lines, and they tend to kind of forget about all of the other parts that are involved in putting a kit like this together so that it actually just bolts on without any modifications, which is what this kit is. When we originally developed this kit, we wanted it to work with the EFR range. They seem to be the most popular at the time, and the range of turbos really suited the 1.6 engine. Since then, obviously there's been more kind of turbo developments, and now a kind of far better suited turbo is the Garrett range, the G25 and the G30. And we had a customer in Italy that wanted a G25. Initially, given that these kits are quite low volume, we don't make too many of them, it was more of a one-off thing that we would do. But having done it, we had to more or less make a whole new kit. So once you go to all the effort to make a whole new kit, you may as well offer it, because the chances are other people are going to want it as well. Obviously underneath here we've got the manifold. What we'll probably do is we'll probably break this down. We'll start off with it fully assembled, and we'll kind of keep removing bits until we've got nothing left. Basically we've got the manifold, so that's 347 stainless steel, 44mm primary with a billet head flange, cast collector, all the kind of standard things that we would normally use on a manifold kit. Then we've got the Garrett G25 top mounted. So the main advantage with going top mounted on the Corsa E, why we wanted to do it and why we necessarily didn't do it with the Corsa D, the coolant hose setup is slightly different on the Corsa E. It's a slightly different header tank in a slightly different position, and the radiator pack's all different. So we kind of realised if we mounted the turbo top mounted, we could keep the aircon with no modifications, and we could keep the standard radiator fan, fan shroud, and the standard near side coolant hose without any changes. So again, it's about trying to create a kit where you kind of need the least amount of parts. The more OE parts you can use, the more reliable it'll be. We're also using a Turbo Smart 40mm wastegate. There's no need for a 45mm gate on these kits. The actual physical size of the wastegate is no bigger on a 45, other than it's just a bit too much wastegate. I don't think anybody will really need the extra size of a 45mm gate. It's not one of those things where the bigger the wastegate you've got, the more power you'll get. It doesn't work like that. We might do a video in the future on kind of wastegate sizing and why it's important. Everybody's got their preferences. All the kind of tuners will say what they're more comfortable working with. But this kit does use the 40mm gate because that's basically all you need. I've also got full 3-inch downpipe. Trying to keep the bends as swept as possible. Normally, we would have to have really tight bend out of the turbo like we do on our bottom mount Corsa D kit. And while that's okay, the bigger the bend, e.g. the kind of a longer sweeping bend, the better it's going to be for turbine efficiency. You want to get that gas out as quickly as you can, so the longer the sweeping bend, the better. Through the least amount of bends, the kind of easier you're making the job of the turbine to get the gas out. One thing that turbos definitely don't like is back pressure. That seems to be a bit of an internet myth that comes around all the time, that turbos need back pressure. They don't. Plenty of other people say it, but it just seems to be one of those kind of Facebook forum things where people say turbos need back pressure. It's just totally not true. You want the least amount. The best exhaust for a turbo car is no exhaust. If you look on a drag car, a big turbo drag car, thousands of horsepower, they generally have very big, very short exhaust that usually come straight out of the bonnet or straight out of the wings, because that is what's best for power. We've got the recirculated wastegate back into the downpipe. We can do it with a screamer as well. Tend to rather not do it with a screamer, purely because with a sports car and a recirculated wastegate, this is a fully road legal kit. It's MOTable. There's no problems with it being illegal or anything like that. And although screening with pipes, they always sound like a fun idea, after a while they do start to grate on you, because you can't really turn it off. Once you've got it, you've got it. So we've got stainless steel coolant lines. Again, one thing we were really conscious of was trying to keep everything as reliable as possible. So we've got stainless steel coolant lines, hard piped. So there's a small silicone hose in the kit, which takes you up to the engine block. And then with this hose here, that goes straight up to the coolant rail, which runs underneath the manifold here. So again, very few joints. We haven't got kind of long, loose rubber hoses flapping about in the engine bay. Everything's nice and tidy and tight. No chance that these things can kind of get melted, or we don't need to run loads of kind of heat sleeving on anything. Stainless steel, it's built to last. We're not going to have any problems with it. Same with the turbo oil feed. What we've got is the original fitting, and we basically adapt it with a new stainless steel -4 line. Now, the advantage of doing this is what you would normally get in the in kind of traditional Vauxhall Corsa VXR kits is you would normally take that oil pump housing off and then tap it to take a 1/8 NPT thread. The difficulty with that is you've got to take it off, you've got to tap it. You kind of you're adding a lot of extra work in here, to do that. Ours is just a slot in, twist around to lock, and that's it. It fits just like the OE, so you can remove it just like the OE. You can put the original turbo back on with no modifications. You don't have to do any drilling or tapping or anything like that. We've got an oil return extension. So again, this bolts up to the standard oil return. No need to modify it. It just bolts straight in with a gasket in between. Very easily reversible. Obviously we've got it's a bit grubby because this is the one from the original prototype out of the jig, basically. So one of the main differences between this kit and the kit for the EFR is we've got an external recirculation valve. Super simple pipe work, really short. That means it's going to be really efficient. Efficiency makes everything work better. So we've got Turbo Smart 25mm recirculation valve. So once the throttle body's closed, this valve can open up and redirect air, compressed air, back out, back into the turbo, and keep the turbo spinning. Basically, that's the whole idea of a recirculation valve. We push air that we've compressed. If the throttle body end is closed, the air can divert back out, back into the intake pipe, and then be drawn back into the turbo and keep the turbo spinning. So sometimes people decide not to fit a recirculation valve, and that's why they tend to get a lot more of that kind of turbo chatter, and it's because the compressor wheel is stalling. And all you're doing really is you're slowing the compressor wheel down again. We use turbine efficiency to speed the compressor wheel up, and then if you kind of force it to slow down and stop because it can't push any more air down into the throttle body, you're just slowing it down. So it's always best to run a recirculation valve, in my opinion. Some people still choose not to do it because they like that kind of turbo noise. I tend to like things that are super efficient and work. And then we've also got a 90mm intake pipe with a built-in MAF boss, aluminium bell mouth, and a Ram Air Pro Ram filter. So these air filters are really nice. We've got a nice bell mouth there. Again, increases the kind of the speed of air as it travels down that intake pipe. Not necessarily something that's going to gain you any performance as such, but these MAFs are really sensitive. So because we've only got a really short intake pipe, because of the actual constraints of fitting a turbo at the top, we need to make sure that we get that air flowing as smoothly as possible as it comes into that intake pipe before it hits that MAF sensor. So that's one of the main reasons why we've got a bell mouth on here. Not strictly required on kind of most of the Garrett kits we do for other cars, like the Astra VXR, Astra H VXR, for example. But on these, it does help quite a lot. We learnt that with the Stage 2 induction kit for the stock frame turbo, that bell mouth really does make a big difference. So just to get a full set of boost pipes in the kit, this is a direct fit for an AirTech intercooler, pretty much. Now, we chose to make it a direct fit for the AirTech intercooler because nobody's going to be running a stock intercooler, and there are very few intercooler kits on the market for the Corsa EVXR. Now, we've always sold AirTech intercoolers and used AirTech intercoolers on projects in the past. The original development car had an AirTech intercooler on it. Most of the tuners we work with use AirTech intercoolers, so it made sense to do it for that. It could still be adapted for others, but yeah, it comes as a direct fit for an AirTech Stage 2 or the Stage 3 one. So the last thing is this modified coolant hose. So the OE coolant hose that fits here would pretty much get in the way of the manifold and the turbo. So this is what the stock coolant hose looks like. That's the shape of that, and as you can see, it's not really going to be the best fit by the time we've got a boost pipe in there. So the best thing to do was actually to get another one made. So we made a piece of tooling, and then JS Performance make us the hose that goes on that piece of tooling, and that is then just a direct replacement for that coolant hose. So if you want one of these kits, it comes with this coolant hose included, and then if you want a coolant hose kit as well, we can do it as a full 4-piece kit with the coolant hose for the other side at the same time. Obviously that also includes the hoses for the header tank as well.